We're back here on 89.5 WJMU The Quad. This is the Faculty Lounge. I'm Dr. Scott Lambert. I'm here with my wife, Jamie Whitmer, and Jason Messina, our producer extraordinaire, who is entering his last semester. Gonna miss you.
Which is like super sad.
I know.
That's
I know.
awful.
I'm gonna miss you.
I have to say this, though. During our break, I went to the restroom.
Everybody needed to hear
They
that.
did, because after I washed my hands, yay me for washing my hands, I went to grab a paper towel. And on the thing of the paper towel, the little dispenser, there was a PSA, a little thing that had stuff. It said how to spot fake news.
Excellent.
Really?
Did you
Yeah.
take well, you couldn't take a picture.
No,
'cause
I
had
didn't,
your
and
phone.
I'm certainly not taking a picture of anything in the restroom. If someone else would have walked in, that would have been it. But, and here's the thing. This is the only thing that I could think of, and I know this is bad, but I wrote sports for 15 years. I wrote a column 3 times a week for 15 years. And I always said that the most of the people who read my column, and they read it religiously, they usually read it while they were on the potty.
Okay.
So, once again, fake news, my column, bathrooms, somehow. Okay. It is time for what's going around.
The weekly wellness check.
Yeah,
So
that too.
well, locally, we've got influenza, still widespread in Illinois. CDC week ending January 11th reported that flu activity nationwide declined slightly, but is still high. Illinois still widespread. Pediatric deaths up to 39. There have been this year, again nationwide, 13 million flu cases, 120,000 hospitalization, and an estimated 6,600 deaths. Kids are being hit harder this year than many years because the predominant strain is flu B. So locally, we're seeing quite a bit of flu activity. Still never too late to get your flu shot. We're right in the middle of flu season, so it's better to get it late than never. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. If you get sick, you need to stay home. Tamiflu is best given within the first 48 hours of onset of symptoms. So if you truly think that you have the flu, contact your healthcare provider and get some guidance from them regarding, do they want you to come in to be seen and, that type of thing. So.
Yeah, Noah, and I'm sure that everybody's going to be sick by next week. This is their first week back.
Yeah. Yeah, that
I've already got
typically
my cold
happens.
now.
Yep, that typically happens. So,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I have a couple questions for you. I'm just going to throw them out here because, you haven't got a chance to prepare for it, so that's fun.
Okay.
This morning, you had to deal with a person online who was going about the anti-vax, the total normal anti-vax stuff.
Right.
This is a hard thing for you to deal with on a daily basis. But,
Right.
I want to try to give people an idea of someone who does what you do, how often you have to deal with people who have anti-vax beliefs.
Okay.
So how often do you come across it, on average, a week?
Oh, a week? I try not to count because that gets depressing. How many times a day? 3 or 4 times a day. I deal with somebody who's not dealing with medical reality. In terms of actual immunization, anti-vax folks, 1 to 2 times a day on an average kind of slow day in which either I haven't said anything publicly that stirred the pot, or something hasn't happened in the news that I've felt, inclined to reply to a discussion on. But there's also days where I'm dealing with 50 different bombardments. Yeah, exactly.
So this is the one that really kind of bothered me because I read some of your posts or some of the stuff that was coming across today. How much money do the pharmaceuticals companies pay you every year to to talk about how important it is to vaccinate your kids.
So I get no money from the pharmaceutical companies.
No money at all? Are
No
you kidding me?
No dollars, and I'm also not, independently wealthy either, which is.
So you're not doing this for some nefarious reason because you're in the bag of the horrible pharmaceutical companies?
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe. But no, there is no kickback, and in fact, on many vaccines, providers actually lose money, because there is a cost. We have to purchase the vaccines. It's not like they're given to us, and then insurance really dictates what the reimbursement on that vaccine is, and then of course, to further that, a nurse has to administer the vaccine. So, nurses are not overly abundant. These people, have salaries and get paid, and so it takes time out of their schedules too. So, at the end of the day, vaccine administration is a wash on most of the vaccines. When you look at cost, and so forth, it's not like we're losing big bucks on them either. But we are not sustaining medical practices on administering vaccines.
And seriously, if you wanted to be totally all about the money, it would be better off for you not to vaccinate some people so they'd be sicker.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. The cost of medical treatment for influenza is far greater than the cost of me giving you your immunization, because I usually will give the immunization during a routine physical or a med check, and great, we'll see you back in 6 months. You catch the flu, I'm very frequently going to see you for a complicated office visit. I'm going to need to follow up on that. If your lungs don't sound great or you don't start improving as anticipated, we're going to see you back. We're going to do tests. We're going to do x-rays. You might catch pneumonia. Then you're going to really be back to see me. We're going to get to know each other really well.
Yeah.
And you might actually get to go to the hospital and be admitted, and, you may end up on a ventilator at the tune of many thousands of dollars a day. But, that is much, if you want to look at this from a cynical, cost analysis, it is more advantageous if people are sick than if they're not. And that's what I don't get about the whole vaccine argument is, healthcare providers want their patients to be well. We want our patients to be well. We are overworked. Primary care providers, there's not enough. There's not enough family practice providers nationwide, so we are really overworked. And the truth of the matter is, we don't want to see you back 5 or 6 times when that could have been prevented, because, first and foremost, we want you to be healthy. What motivates us is to see you thrive as a human being and as an individual, and have kids and raise them and watch those kids thrive, and hopefully help your parents thrive at an older age. And we want to be there for you when times are tough, and celebrate with you when times are good. And the very most basic, simplest, non-complicated piece of advice that I give people every day is, number 1, immunize your children per the CDC schedule, and number 2, keep yourself up to date on your own immunizations. That is, I make a lot of really tough decisions every day, and a lot of it, we have to think about the person and what's going on and medication interactions and all of this. Look, recommending an immunization per the CDC schedule, very simple. In the situation of the flu shot, if you're over 6 months old,
get your flu shot.
Get your flu shot, unless you have some really catastrophic thing going on with your immune system. And it's not usually because the flu shot will be dangerous to you. It's that you don't have enough of an immune system to build a memory to the vaccine, so it's not going to be beneficial. It's not that the shot's going to hurt you, because there's no active flu in the flu shot. It's that you know, you don't have enough of an immune system to make it memory. And we certainly don't want, you know, if you're that compromised, we certainly don't want to make your immune system think about anything else. You know, so basically, you need to be in a bubble.
So, okay, coronavirus.
Coronavirus, yes. This is, you know, it's kind of scary.
It is, because I would think if it's a coronavirus, I just need to give it a lime and let's sit back and relax.
Sit on the beach and, yeah, kick some back,
No.
but it is not a party. So, for those that don't know, we have a novel coronavirus called Coronavirus 2019 NCOV. Was identified December 31st, initially in, and I'm sure I am mispronouncing this, and you know what, somebody should correct me so I know, but Wuhan, China, December 31st, there was an unusual pneumonia cluster. So they had several people get sick. It was a pneumonia-like illness. They were testing for it, you know, to see what was going on. And all of the tests were coming back negative. They could not identify what these folks were sick with. And it became apparent rather quickly that this was something new, possibly. Extra testing was done, and they identified that, yes, indeed, this was a virus that we had never seen before. It's a coronavirus. Most coronaviruses are pretty mild. They actually cause somewhere between 5 and 30% of viral cold illnesses worldwide each year, depending on the year. But sometimes coronaviruses can be particularly dangerous and deadly. The two most famous were SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, and MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. SARS was first reported in 2002 in southern China, and started, well, there have been no cases since 2004, which is the good thing. The bad thing was mortality rate was 10%. There were 774 deaths. 87% of the cases were in China and Hong Kong. MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, was first reported in 2012. Cases and deaths have been declining since 2016. But this one was particularly virulent. We all remember SARS as being scary, but MERS carried a 34% mortality rate, 858 deaths. So coronaviruses, both of these, including the new one, appear to have been spread from animals to humans. It's called zoonotic. And then after that, there has also been human-to-human transmission.
But it's not easily transmittable, right?
Well, you know, and here's the thing. The WHO, World Health Organization, is calling this a complex and rapidly evolving situation. So what we know today, we will know more tomorrow and so forth. So as of right now, we think it spreads very similarly to a common cold. We think it's droplet, and we think that the particles are fairly large, like larger than the flu virus, but honestly, we're not 100% sure on this. But if someone coughs, and the droplets go out of their mouth, fly 3-4 feet, land on a surface, and you come along, touch that surface, touch your eye, you can get this. Usually it's fairly close contact, like if you hang out with somebody in the same room. You know, so we just really don't know how highly contagious this is. It certainly doesn't look like anything as contagious as influenza, or
Ebola.
certainly nothing like measles. But there are, as of earlier today, 557 confirmed cases, 17 deaths, which is a 4% mortality rate, which is not something to brush off. The United States identified the first case on our soil on the 21st, and that was in Washington, their state. There is also a case in Brazos County, Texas, that is suspected, and the CDC is running the sample, and we should know back on that. And there have been other countries that this has spread to. So it is, it's concerning, and you know, the scary thing about this is And frankly, anytime we have a brand new virus that we have never identified before, we don't know what's going to happen. And not to sound doom and gloom with this, because, a 4% mortality rate is alarming, but it's not, it's not crazy. But we don't know how people are going to respond to this. We don't really know what's going to work in terms of treatment. With SARS and MERS, essentially there was no definitive treatment. It was supportive only.
Right.
And we don't know what long-term health implications there will be. So the good news is China, with SARS, way back in 2002, they came under a lot of criticism because when SARS first emerged, the government was very secretive and withheld a lot of information. And that led to the spread of SARS unnecessarily.
Right.
This time around, they have been very aggressive. Immediately, when they knew that they had a problem, they reached out to the World Health Organization, who is absolutely the authority when it comes to something novel or very unusual. They did the right thing. They have continued to be very aggressive with this. They have essentially quarantined the city and a couple of other cities. There's 11 million people in Wuhan. So when we're talking about 570 or 557 confirmed cases, when you put it into perspective, 11 million people is not a lot. But the flip side of this is, we know with these type of illnesses, the majority will go undiagnosed because people feel kind of bad. They stay home,
Right.
or we hope that they stay home.
Right. So we're here on 89.5 WJMU, the Quad. We're on the faculty lounge. The other thing that we have to think is that's China. It's a long way away, but we have had 2 cases here in the United States, one for sure, one possibly. How long does it take before we here in the United States have to start worrying and panicking and going into full Ebola mode?
Well, we should not panic because, again, this is a coronavirus that seems to be causing severe illness. So a fairly high incidence of pneumonia with it. In fact, I found today on the WHO site, 25% of confirmed cases are deemed severe illness. But we don't have to panic. Most people, 96% of people who have caught this so far have survived it. But we need to be very vigilant and aware. And, China sounds like it's really far away. It's only a plane ride away. When I went to Copenhagen, it took me 6 hours to get to Copenhagen. You think about, Denmark being, Europe, it's far away. It's not far away when we're talking about international travel.
No.
And both of the case in Washington, confirmed case, and the suspected case in Texas, both were in Wuhan, China, and recently traveled home. So the bottom line is, if you're a healthcare provider, what the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, is suggesting is that we start screening for this now. So this is lots of fun, right? Because it's flu season. So anybody with a fever or a cough, we need to ask them very simply, have you traveled to China in the past 2 weeks? And if they have, you need to quarantine that person. You need to contact your facility's infectious disease person. You need to contact the state health department. The state health department will contact the CDC. Right now, the CDC is the only place that testing can occur. So what they will do is work with the state health department to get that individual tested. They're actually recommending, hey, don't test them. There's like this funky viral panel that you can order, that will come back if they have a coronavirus or if they have rhinovirus or an adenovirus or whatever. They're saying don't order that because, if you suspect the coronavirus 2019, we don't want anybody else handling that sample because handling that sample could infect
That person.
You know, and the thing is, we just don't know. The CDC is working to get the testing out to more sites within the next few, you know, days to weeks. And I think how quickly they move on that is going to be dependent on how many cases we're seeing and how urgent this is. So, World Health Organization convened yesterday, and they were going to decide whether or not to consider this a public health emergency of international concern. They couldn't come to a conclusion yesterday. They reconvened today, and they've basically said, as of right now, it's not meeting criteria for that level of concern, which is the panic button. So they're not hitting the panic button, but they're reconvening in 10 days, and sooner if things change.
So in other words, we've got 10 more days to decide whether or not we're going to have a major pandemic on our hands, and if we can all completely freak out.
Well, even then, we shouldn't freak out. But it is, you know, if you're flying, you should be cognizant of where you're flying to and where the plane that you're getting on. Where did it come from? Okay, as of right now, the only airports that are accepting flights into Wuhan or from Wuhan, China, are LAX, Atlanta, JFK, O'Hare. There's two others that, off the top of my head, I'm not catching, but there's 6 airports nationally. Okay, so there's a pretty good screening process. They're taking people's temperatures, you know, who are coming off of flights, and screening for symptoms. And if you're symptomatic, you may not be
going home,
proceeding through the airport, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so we are taking this seriously.
The thing is, if there's one person in the plane who's symptomatic, doesn't that mean that they'll basically have to quarantine the whole plane?
Well, no. But they probably would notify the folks that were on that plane, and there may be some surveillance measures done. We saw this actually with Ebola, missionaries that traveled back. You know, there was the unfortunate nurse who had to live in a tent in the parking lot
See,
of
that's
the
what I was
hospital. It's the
thinking
most
of
ridiculous
immediately.
thing I had ever seen in my life. But, you know, there should be some surveillance. If you have had a known exposure, and I'm sure that there will be, we're not there yet, you know, but the bottom line is, if you're on a plane right now, and this is good, just good advice, period, if you're on a plane. It's flu season anyway. You know what? You need to take a mask with you when you travel.
That's right.
Because you can't control what other people choose to do and how responsible they choose to be. If you are sick and you have to be on a plane and you have a cough, you should be the good person and wear a mask and tell the people around you, you know, that, hey, I'm not feeling so great, da-da-da-da-da.
I have mask questions.
But you can't control that, right? You
Yes.
can't, like, make somebody wear a mask because it's the United States. But you can put a mask on yourself to protect yourself. And the best mask to get, if you can find it, is an N95 respirator, because that will stop very tiny particles, such as influenza. We're not sure that coronavirus is going to warrant that level of a mask, but the WHO is recommending it as a precautionary measure.
Can you decorate your mask?
You can decorate your mask.
Because Corinne's going on a plane flight soon. Can you, like, draw pictures?
Well,
and
you
make
know,
it-
as long as you don't mess with the integrity of the barrier, right? So, I mean, the thing is, have a mask with you. You don't have to wear it, but if somebody sits down next to you and they're not looking so good, put your mask on.
I want to put fangs on my mask with little blood droplets coming off of them.
And you would be the most popular person on that plane,
Yeah,
I'm sure, if you did that.
It would be fun.
Also good, and I, not a huge fan of the hand sanitizers, because I think we've gotten a little bit over paranoid with germs. But this is the time to carry hand sanitizer with you. If you're on a plane, Carry the hand sanitizer with you. You still need to wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. I mean, wash your hands every chance you get. 30 seconds with soap and friction, and then rinse very thoroughly. You're manually removing those germs. But hand sanitizer, when you're on a plane and you can't get to a sink every hour, to wash your hands, hand sanitizer is a really good idea. So those are the things. And you know what, guys? There is no amount of echinacea or onion necklaces or garlic or sage or zinc or vitamin C that is going to save you from coronavirus or influenza.
I'm sure that if I cut an onion in half and stick it out of my front door, nothing will get me.
It will not save you from this. So you need to do what is best for yourself, and that is to have a mask with you if you're flying. I think a mask is good to have, on you all the time. Although I do not have a mask in my purse at all times. But if I am traveling, by golly, I've got masks with me.
I know, and I see you at work and you've got your mask on.
You know what the best thing ever is on a plane is to wear a mask, because when you sit down and you've got a mask on, ain't nobody gonna sit next to you.
Oh no.
Unless that thing is like jam-packed full, no one is sitting next to you. It's a great way to end up with a window seat with nobody in that center seat.
There you go.
So there are perks to this.
There you go. All right.
So yeah, I mean it's scary. So WHO is saying anybody who's been exposed to coronavirus, that folks with close contact are at most risk for catching this. Close contact they've defined as being within 6 feet or within a room or care area of a coronavirus case for a prolonged period of time while not wearing protective personal equipment, gown, gloves, an N95 respirator, and they're recommending goggles.
What about glasses?
Well, glasses provide some barrier, but the goggles, actually seal to your face, and the particles can't get, around the glasses. So goggles are best. So healthcare providers, they want you being pretty careful with this. So.
Okay.
Scary stuff. It's
is.
going to be an exciting next few weeks.
It is. And I'm the one that started sending you all of the articles. I know you had already read them, but I started sending you all of the articles. And I do think that it's something that we all need to be extremely concerned about. But I also don't want to see us go through and do the whole Ebola thing, too, where everybody just went nuts. And
we should not be ridiculous on this. It's a concern because it's new.
And the media has a real good chance of taking this and running with it and getting everybody freaked out.
There's a fine line the media has to play with things like this, because they need to get the word out. That hey, this is potentially serious. 25% of cases develop severe illness, but they also need to do that fine line of not being, where we're chasing people down the interstate, who are in ambulances, and
It's called reporting with nuance.
It's tough though. It's tough to say, hey, look, this is serious. We need to watch it. We should take reasonable precautions and monitor this, and get people to actually do that. Take it seriously enough to do it, without totally, losing our minds over it. Because
Absolutely.
this is not, it's not Ebola, but you know what? It's also more contagious. It's going to spread a lot quicker than Ebola does.
Yes.
I mean, people with Ebola are sick.
And people on this, most of them are going to be fine, and if you get it, you're probably just going to think you have a cold.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. And so people with colds tend to be mobile. And they're going around.
Here's my question,
that
and
type of thing.
I'm serious, and I'm sorry if this sounds kind of cynical, but it sounds to me like you'd be better off, or you'd be more concerned of getting the flu than you should of getting this virus.
Well, it depends, and that is something that I'm not sure we know about. With influenza, our bodies, most of us, in adulthood, have had the flu at some point in our lives, and we have immunizations for it. We do have ways to protect ourselves, and our immune system has seen similar stuff before. When you have a new illness, and this is why it's so concerning, is we're all susceptible to it. It's new. Nobody has any immunity, although immunity for coronaviruses does tend to wane fairly quickly after infection, so you don't necessarily end up with lifelong infection. But when you have an illness that's new, that 25% of folks that are getting it are seriously sick, we just don't have enough data to be able to answer a lot of these questions.
Right.
So time will tell. Time will tell. I am concerned about it, but I don't think that this is. I think it's something we need to be reasonable with.
Okay.
And measured.
I think that's fair.
And
I think that's fair.
if you live in China, and I think that they're being very aggressive with this, and you feel like you even just have a cold, those folks need to stay home.
Yeah.
They need to stay home until they're well, and they've been well for a couple of days. If this becomes a bigger issue in the United States, then we're going to need to start, enforcing that too. But what that's going to take is it's going to take employers supporting of that.
Well.
And people calling in sick, because there's a lot of folks that have to go to work sick because they're going to get fired if they miss.
I told that to a friend last week. I told him he had, the flu or a virus. And off he went to work. I was like, you shouldn't be doing that. I've got a cold, but I've got a cold. I'm not going to be sending this or sending anybody to the hospital. But I'm staying as far away from it as I can from people because I don't want to get anybody else sick. I think that if you are in a position, especially if you have to work with people, stay home.
Yeah, it is very simple, but again, people have to be comfortable doing that,
Yeah.
And we, at least in this country, and I suspect a lot of places, we feel like we must go to work or our job is in jeopardy. So it's going to, if it becomes an issue in the United States, it's going to need to take a level of public education as well as corporate cooperation and things like that. So yeah.
Okay, Jason, why are you laughing?
Well, I just found a meme about what we were talking about the flu in China.
What did it say?
Well, it's got a picture of someone representing China knocking out a person representing human rights, but then it shows some flu as a giant thing about to mess up China.
Okay.
I can show you. It's hard to explain a picture like this over radio, but
take a look.
I was just stumbling across it and I laughed because it's exactly part of it is what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the thing. In China, if the government tells you to do something, you don't have the right to.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice, and I certainly am not an advocate of that. So, it is what it is. They're saying, there's been a lot of questions on where did this originate from. MERS originated from camels. SARS originated from bats. They are thinking, and we don't know this, but they are thinking that it is Dr. Lambert's favorite animal, snakes, that have started this. And now, the interesting thing is, the first cases were exposed at a seafood market, but apparently they were selling other animals as well. So we'll know more about that in the coming days as well. You know what, though, is in the news today that I thought was particularly fascinating?
What?
There's been a Sasquatch sighting.
Oh, really? Where?
Yes, there's been a Sasquatch sighting in Washington State, Sherman's Pass webcam.
Nice.
They caught him.
They caught him?
On camera, yep.
You sure it wasn't just me, coming back from the bathroom?
No, this Sasquatch is much thinner.
Oh, it's a skinny Sasquatch.
It appears to be very thin and appears to be tall, although, of course, like all other Sasquatch pictures and sightings, it's very fuzzy. and not in a well-lit area, and, you know,
Those darn Sasquatches.
they are tricky.
They are.
You know, I'm not one to say that I don't think there's actually a Sasquatch out there, but I think even if I were to see it with my own eyes, I think I'd have trouble believing.
Yeah.
Just because we've been shown so many fake things, or things have been proven fake, that's hard for me to just accept that I would finally be shown one that was accurate.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
I agree.
Definitely.
So,
So that was the biggest news of the day, actually, was the Sasquatch thing.
Tuesday,
Oh, what's Tuesday?
Jeffrey Sterling is coming to town. My wife has heard me talk about this story for 7 years. 7 years. So Tuesday she gets to meet him.
It'll be interesting.
It will be.
I'm excited.
Jason has actually read the book.
Yeah? I was talking to her about that while you were using the restroom.
Well, that's awesome. I have not read the book, so
It's really good.
I need to read it.
And I was telling Dr. Lambert that I was not surprised. That I was just, because it's written really well, that I didn't know if he wrote it himself or there was a ghostwriter, because there are a lot of autobiographies with high-profile figures. Usually there's a ghostwriter who interviews them and listens to them and their story for a long time and then goes through with it.
Yeah.
But you told me that he wrote it himself, and so...
Well, if he didn't, I'd be upset because I would have wanted to have been the ghostwriter. I would have loved to have written that book.
But it's very good, very depressing, as you would imagine, the whole gravity of the situation and a lot of his realizations throughout the book.
Yeah.
But I did my, I read extremely fast, so I did my one quick read through because we were talking about him on class. I wanted to be prepared, but now I'm kind of going over it, combing through it, looking at, making notes about what I want to specifically possibly ask him when I get the chance with your class on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So who is Jeffrey Sterling and what did he do? Because I'm sure people listening are like,
Sterling
who
is
is
a
this?
1989 Millikan graduate.
Yeah.
Who went from Millikan to Washington University, got his law degree,
Was a public defender.
was a public defender, was recruited by the CIA or joined the CIA. He actually answered a newspaper ad.
Just kind of interesting.
He spent time in the CIA. He went up through the ranks. He eventually got himself a chance to go work in Iran. As he went and prepared and learned the language and got everything ready to do it, somebody told him that they didn't want him to actually do the assignment. He asked why, and they said, because you're a big black man. And he looked at them and said, when did you realize I was black? Not long after that, he became the first person to sue the CIA for racial discrimination. The CIA took the case to court, went up to court, said we can't try this case because we would have to dispel classified information. The court said, sorry, you can't do this. You have to kind of take one for the team. Sterling was like, wow. He went to the United States Senate, the Senate Intelligence Committee, told them about a plot that was happening in Iran with the CIA to give Iran nuclear plans from Russia, actually. The plans were supposed to have flaws in them. The flaws were easily spotted. And it ended up helping Iran's nuclear program. Not long after that, James Risen, a New York Times reporter at the time, wrote a story about this, or put it in the book. And for the next 10 years, Jeffrey Sterling was under a microscope. He was fired from his job. He was not able to find a job anywhere doing anything until he finally got one selling or working as an insurance inspector. Not long after that, he was brought into work specifically so he could be arrested. From that point on, it was 4.5 years before he ever went to trial. During that entire time, he was not able to work. He was not able to find a job. When he went to trial, there was no physical evidence to connect him to James Risen. Risen did not testify. That they still managed to find a way to call him guilty. He served 3 years in prison. The only only leaker of the 8 people that were tried by the Obama administration. He was the only one to claim his innocence the entire time. He was the only one to actually serve time in jail. He just got out. He wrote his book. He will be in town Tuesday at 7 p.m. at Kuiper Hall to tell you his story and to sell his books. If you want to buy the book, you can go to Novel Idea Gifts and Bookstore on the far end of Main Street here in Decatur.
And he has claimed he's innocent, correct?
He's never once
Yeah.
said that he was guilty.
The wording in the book is used as a scapegoat.
Yeah.
You know, I've been talking to him since 2012 for about 3 years. My class and me were the only people that talked to him and wrote stories about what was happening. I wrote a personal reference for him for the trial to Judge Leonie Brinkman, asking for a light sentence. Of course, it didn't happen. Well, it did. He didn't get 33 years like they wanted, but you know, it's a sad story.
Yeah, jeez. Anyway.
Come
Yes.
hear this story. I'm telling you, people, it is a sad story, but I look at him, I see him coming here, and after a story of 6 years of such horrific horror, I see a light at the end of his tunnel, and I am so happy to see that I hope there's a cause for celebration at some point.
And to clarify again, we are going to be doing the show on Tuesday. With
The show
him.
will be Tuesday with him from 4 to 5. That will be it. And then we will be going downstairs and having dinner with him and talking with him and all that good stuff. All right? Okay, anything else you want to talk about?
Nope.
First week of classes.
First week of
It's-
classes.
And it's my last first week of classes. too.
Yeah, how is that going? You're in my
Honestly,
class twice.
really well, and I'm coming to your class with a good attitude.
You
and,
are, and that's like, you know, new.
Yeah, breath of fresh air.
I understand.
I'm enjoying every single one of them. I'm having, I very much enjoy. I have Dr. Delaney's Persuasion and Campaigns class, which is a 400 level comm class, and it's kind of like almost a who's who of comm majors. Like, I know almost everybody in there, and I know every single one of them is a good comm major. So, you know,
Yeah.
like every major, there's some people that aren't always the
I
best.
understand.
But I'm really excited for that class. Your class, I'm excited to be doing. I'm hearing some of the stuff I've heard before, but you know what? It's reinstating that I do know what I've learned from you, and I'm going to be getting some specific stuff from you to work
And
on.
that's the thing. At the end of this semester, on our very last show of the semester, Jason will be talking for 30 minutes at least about what he's learned at the radio show and at the newspaper. He's a media person. What he's learned.
Only 30 minutes?
I can give you an hour.
No.
Yeah, we can give you
No,
an hour.
I was joking. I don't need that much time, but yeah,
So,
I'm excited for it. And then
Alright.
also acting for non-majors.
oh, that's got to be fun.
And I'm taking it with two of my best friends that I've been, Kevin Miller, who you
Yeah.
had freshman year, and Alex Herrera, who's been like a friend since I met him first week. So,
Very good.
and that I'm enjoying the acting class already. So,
Very good. All right. So until Tuesday, we will be leaving. We will see you on Tuesday. In 2 weeks, John Blakeman will be here
Nice.
on Thursday. So we will have
We'll be
something to
talking
look
about
forward, and
things.
he'll be able to talk about the coronavirus.
The coronavirus, and John also is doing quite a lot of research into fatigue prior to heart events, heart attacks, and that is fascinating research. So
Okay.
anyway,
All right, we're here on 89.5 WJMU The Quad. This is the Faculty Lounge. We'll see you guys on Tuesday.